Hey guys, it's me. This is part 2 of the Beware of Dog Kisses Poofle wreath. Or if you got the kitty sign in the kit, then it'll be a kitty wreath. Or you can use whatever sign you want. You don't have to make this a dog or kitty themed wreath. This, and I want everybody to be clear on this, and I think most of you know by now that my classes aren't necessarily to teach a particular theme or for a particular holiday. You could take any one of these methods that I show you in class, and here I am still playing with my poof here. You can take any of these methods that I demonstrate in my classes or my videos and use them to create any theme that you want, simply by just changing your choice of ribbon, your choice of sign, your color mesh, anything at all. And I think you guys are, you guys are smart enough to realize that. So my little curly is fraying here. I'm trying to tuck it in, but I think once I cover it with ribbon, it'll be okay. Jute mesh is really pretty. I love the natural look of it. This is jute mesh, but it does have a tendency to fray on the ends. It's because it's got burlap in it. But once you get it on there, just don't touch it. That's very important. With any style wreath you're doing and you're using mesh, just when you get it on there, try not to keep pulling at it and whatnot. You can always do a light spray with a craft adhesive. I use Elmer's Craft Bond. If you're going to use this, be sure to take it outside. Don't go crazy spraying it, because if you put too much on, it will leave a little film behind. So, if you take it outside and just spray the back lightly or the front, that definitely helps. I've also read somewhere that someone used Fray Check. And I used Mod Podge once and I used a little foam brush, and I brushed the edges of my cut mesh with that. And that did definitely help, but it's just Mod Podge takes a while to dry. I've heard that Fray Check doesn't take as long. If you have your mesh cut and you lay it out, just brush the cut edges lightly with the Fray Check with a little paintbrush, or use the foam brush like this one woman did, and that'll seal your edges too, especially if you don't want to use the wood burning tool, if you're a little bit nervous about using it because of the fumes and whatever. I use mine. I never really had an issue with a lot of burning smell, but I know some people are concerned about that, so that's definitely an option as well. So, and again, this wreath kind of looks like it's got 3 different methods in it, but it really does. You've got some curls here. Here's a curl. It looks like you've got some spirals here. You've got some ruffles. You've got some poofs. Because of the way we rolled it, we really kind of do have almost like 3 different methods going on in this wreath. Ruffles, curls, or spirals, which is the edges that we rolled under first, and then we have our poofs, which are in the middle. So, but it ultimately does make a really full wreath, as you can tell. You're going to have different, curls here and there, and once we put our ribbon on, because it looks like it might be a little bit uneven around the edges, maybe not too bad. Once we put our ribbon on, that's all going to even it out. That's why I like putting ribbon all around the outside first. It kind of rounds out the shape. I'm getting notifications on my Facebook that's making noises here. Let me plug my battery in. All we're really going to do right now is add the ribbon, because we put the sign and the mesh on last night. The mesh was the most time-consuming part. Now, I want to tell you, too, I put the sign on first before I put my ribbon. That's purely a matter of personal preference. If you want to put your ribbon on and get it in all the pipe cleaners and then lay your sign on top, and you can kind of have the ribbon sticking out from behind the sign, you can certainly do that too. I do 2 ribbon tails per pipe cleaner for if you have 4 different types of ribbon, which I do. We're going to show you in a second. I usually use 2, 2.5, and I have a really cute doggy paw. And then I have this almost like this bandana pattern. I got that from Craft Outlet. We're kind of mixed up here because they fell on the floor. And then I have a 2.5 inch, like a natural and red polka dot. It's canvas. So this one, I actually have 3 2.5. I usually just use 2, but when I was picking out the patterns, I liked these patterns. And then I have one of the 1.5 inch. This is like a red gingham, which sort of matches, doesn't really match exactly. This is more of a burgundy on here, but I think I do have a burgundy gingham somewhere, but I don't know where it is. So we're going to go with the red. Now, what am I doing here? I also cut some additional pieces. These are cut at 12 inches, okay? My ribbons are all mixed up because they fell on the floor. They're cut at 12 inches. Now, typically, I'll take my 1.5, so there's 9 pieces of each, cut at 12 inches and dovetailed. Typically, I'll take my 1.5, which I did do, and I'll cut 9 extra pieces of each at 13 inches, which are these, and I do not dovetail the ends. These are for my little bow ties that I put in the middle. I'm sure you guys have seen those already. If this is your first video, then you might not have seen these. But since I didn't have two 1.5 inch, I picked three 2.5 instead. I chose to take these and make those at 13 inches. You can do your little bow ties with the 2.5 inch or the 1.5 inch. It doesn't really matter. Like I said, typically, if you've seen my other videos, you see that I normally do 2.5 and 1.5. But like I said, this time I just happened to like the patterns. So I have 3 2.5. All right, I'm blabbing enough. So again, I decided to put my sign on first. You can do all your ribbons first and then do your sign. So you kind of just have to go back now and decide which 2 ribbons you want to put together. So I think what I'm going to do, where's my red and white polka dot? I'm trying to see which ones go together better. And a lot of times I don't really know which ones I'm going to want to put together until I'm getting ready to do my wreath. And then a lot of times you just kind of have to lay them together and see how they look and put them on your wreath. So this is what I think I'm going to do. Sometimes when I'm making a wreath, I'll even cut, extra of 2 different patterns or colors. Because a lot of times if you have 2 patterns or colors in your mind for your wreath and then you get them on there and you don't like them, you have some other ones to choose from. So honestly, I never really know what I'm going to use or how well it's going to look until I get it on the wreath. If you're a new wreath maker, it can be challenging to pick out ribbon that you feel will look good. I a lot of times go with the colors in my sign. There's not really much color in this sign. I do have the black and the white and the paw print. But let's get this ribbon on here because it's about 12:30 here, 1 o'clock Eastern time, and I've got some errands I have to run this afternoon on Sunday. This is Sunday afternoon here. I'm going to put these 2 together. So you just layer them on top of each other. Find your center point. Now, a new way that I've been doing my ribbon is I will lay them down and I will just kind of pinch them like that, like I'm doing a ruffle. Do you see that? And the reason why I've decided to do it this way now is because if you don't have your ribbon pinched properly in the middle, when you go to lay it in your tie, they don't separate right. If you just kind of squinch them together and you go to put them in your wreath, they just don't separate right. And you'll see what I mean when you do it yourself. So I've started doing it that way now because I saw some other wreath makers doing it that way and I thought, I kind of like how that works. So you start on the outside. So it's just very important to make sure that your ribbon isn't pinched all crazy in the middle. Try to make it neat because that way when you're going to separate them, they separate nice. And I kind of like to curl them under on the outside. So they go around and I'm facing them all in the same direction. That's how I do it on the outside of the wreath. And this helps to give your wreath a nice round shape. I don't like satin ribbon as much as canvas. This is the satin ribbon here. This is the canvas. The canvas, holds its shape a lot better. Even though they're both wired, I just prefer canvas ribbon, but this bandana ribbon was so pretty. So just sort of, you're trying to get it to frame the outside of your wreath is what you're doing, just like that. Okay? This ribbon's very, this mesh is very poofy. This wreath base is very poofy. So you might find that your ribbon might want to stick up a little bit. But this is a very poofy base, so I just kind of put my hands under the ribbon like that and kind of curl it under. So now, where I would typically use a 1.5 inch ribbon to go in the center, for this one I'm going to take another piece of this 2.5, not dovetailed, it's 13 inches. I'm going to fold the ends over so they overlap like that. Make sure they're overlapped or your bow tie is going to come out. Just kind of pinch it in the middle and make your little bow tie. I'm sure you guys have seen me do this before. Whatever pattern you decide to choose is entirely up to you. You could have done the polka dot if you wanted to. You could have done the, see how cute that looks though? And you can just cut the rest of that pipe cleaner right off. Just make sure you have it twisted enough so you don't lose your ribbon. You could cut it, or you could just twist that extra pipe cleaner around to the back, whatever you want to do. And that's it. That's what I'm going to do on the whole outside of my wreath in every single pipe cleaner. So we're going, but I'm going to alternate now. So the next one, I'm going to move to my other two patterns. I'm going to put this gingham with this doggy. I don't even need to really fold it over anymore. I'm so used to folding it over to find my middle, but now that I like to pinch it like this instead, just go right up your center. When you're holding it in your hand like that, you could sort of determine that they're both the same length, and they pretty much are. And I'm going to put this one, these two different ones, in the next pipe cleaner, or the next set of pipe cleaners. And again, the doggy paw one is the silk ribbon, or the satin, I should say. And they just don't, they do hold their shape, but just not as much as the canvas, I suppose. And if you find that you've got a little bit too much on one side, just go ahead and pull it through a little bit so they're even. And just sort of, again, curl them so they're kind of going under and framing the wreath. And you're going to see when I'm all done what I meant before by if your wreath looks a little bit lopsided, if you have, you know, a poof sticking out here or a spiral and it just looks kind of lopsided around the outside, this will help your wreath have a nice round shape. So for this one, for my center, my bow tie, I'm using the gingham, again, 13 inches, not dovetailed, because you want to overlap those end pieces. So it doesn't really matter if it's dovetailed or not. That's just a finishing touch. And there's your little bow tie for the center. I wish I could have found a burgundy gingham to match the bow on the sign, but you know what? It's not the end of the world. Again, just make sure that you have this twisted enough so when you cut it off, you're not going to lose your bow tie. And that's that. So I'm just going to kind of keep alternating. Look how cute that is. Going all the way around the wreath. Again, if you didn't want to put your sign on until after, you would do the same thing on the 8 ties on the inside. Excuse me, yes, 8 ties on the inside. But you can put your sign down first and then kind of put your ribbon around it. But I'm going to pause this and finish putting the ribbon on, and I will be back. Okay, guys, I'm back. Have I been paused that whole time? I don't even know. I hope I was paused that whole time, because if I wasn't paused, you've basically been watching me add ribbon and not talking at all. So, I'm sorry. This is how it looks so far. And it has 2 ribbon ties per pipe cleaner all the way around the outside. So there's 18 sets of 2. And you can see I put my little bow ties in the middle of each one. I alternated the patterns, but look now, look what I'm trying to tell you, how it just sort of evens out the wreath. It's nice and round. You don't have any pieces sticking out anywhere. You don't have any weird looking pieces of mesh to give it a weird shape. So it really does, I'm trying to fix my camera here so you can kind of see the whole thing. But look how nice that looks so far. And the red gives it a really nice pop of color. So what we're going to do now, and I'll just keep the camera on here for you. we're just going to go ahead and put ribbon on the inside. Now, like I said, you don't have to do your sign first. You can put the sign on after you put your ribbon if you want your ribbon to sort of be sticking out from behind the sign. Sometimes I do it that way. Sometimes I do it this way. But the only challenge with doing it this way after you already add the sign is sometimes your pipe cleaners kind of get hidden behind the sign and you have to dig them out. And for that reason, I don't necessarily add ribbon to all the pipe cleaners on the inside when I add my sign first. So I hope that makes sense. But here's a pipe cleaner right here. I'm going to start right here. The only thing I do differently too is I don't necessarily put my ribbon bundle all the way down to the bottom of the pipe cleaner, especially when the wreath is really full like this one is, because what's going to happen is your ribbon's going to kind of get lost down inside your mesh, and you don't want it to get lost. You kind of want it to, well, obviously there's a main reason why you don't want it to get lost. You want your ribbon to be seen. So I just kind of maybe go down like 3/4 of the way down my pipe cleaner, and then I tie my ribbon in, if that makes sense, just so it's, you know, it has enough to stick out and you can see it. And I do kind of spread it out. I make an X with it instead of how I had them all going out in one direction on the outside. When I'm on the inside, I sort of make an X with it and spread it out a little bit more. So there's my first bundle on the inside. And I'm still, and if it's going over the sign a little bit, that's totally fine. I kind of like the way it looks when it overlaps the sign. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm still going to add another bow tie to my center. I really like the way this red ribbon looks. That's why it's kind of nice to use this jute natural mesh as a base, because then you can pretty much use any color ribbon that you want and it's not going to clash with your mesh because you have a neutral base. It's a neutral color. So there's my first little bundle on the inside, looking very cute. I love those little bow ties. I'm not really a big bow person. You know, all the other wreath makers use their Pro Bow the Hand or their Bowdabra, or what's the new one out that everybody's using? Easy Bow Maker, is that what it is? You know, I just have never really been a big fan of bows. I'll add bows if I'm doing like a grapevine floral wreath, but I just like, I kind of feel like sometimes the bow overpowers the wreath, if that makes sense. That's just my personal opinion. I'm pulling out a fray here and I messed up my bow, my little bow tie. It's just a personal matter of preference. You can definitely add a bow to this. I may still have a bow making class because I can do a hand-tied bow. I can also use the Pro Bow. I can pretty much use all the bow making machines, and I feel like I don't want to rip you guys off. I mean, I don't really mean it like that, but I know a lot of you like to want to learn how to make bows, and for that very reason I'd be happy to show you how. I'm just not a big fan of adding them to my wreaths. I just never have been. I like my little bow ties, as you can see. So there's the first one, right there below the sign. Let's go to our other pattern here. I kind of have to move it along. Like I said, I've got some errands to run this afternoon here that I don't have time to do during the week when I'm working. We're going to go back to our doggy print in gingham. And again, this is a red gingham. It's not a burgundy gingham like the one that's in the sign. But you know what? It's not that big of a deal. It's still a gingham ribbon. Don't worry if your ribbons overlap each other a little bit. Again, if it overlaps your sign a little bit, I kind of like the way that looks. Don't worry about that too awful much. Again, you can kind of tuck the ribbons underneath each other if they overlap. That's totally fine. And then I can go ahead and get my one that's not dovetailed and make another bow tie. Be careful when you're cutting off the end of your pipe cleaners because they are sharp. Got that little wire that sticks out, and I've cut myself many times on those, so just be careful. So there's the other. So I've got 2 little ribbon bundles underneath my sign, looking very cute. Now we've got 6 pipe cleaners on the inside, or 8 actually. And like I said, because I think I may have partially hidden some of my pipe cleaners with the sign, I'm probably not going to add ribbon to every pipe cleaner, but that's totally up to you. If you want to try to dig them out from behind the sign, or like I said before, just go ahead and put your ribbons on before you add your sign. I've done that too. I'm a firm proponent of liking to be able to see my mesh too. I don't like to totally cover up my mesh. There's another one here. No, I gotta go next to this one here. I can't have 2 of the same ribbon next to each other. That's a big no-no with me. That one I think is buried, so we're gonna go up to this one, I think. That's a big no-no. I don't like to have 2 of the same ribbons next to each other. So here's another one here. What I was saying before is that a lot of wreath makers that you may have seen will cut their ribbons 14 inches, and I used to do that, but honestly, I just felt like it just made the wreath look like all it was ribbon. You couldn't see the mesh. It just totally covered everything up. And, you know, I've seen lots of wreath makers, and their wreaths are absolutely gorgeous. I'm not knocking that at all. But posting images in my group and getting comments, you know, saying, is there mesh under there? You know, where's the mesh? So, yeah, I like to be able to see my mesh. I'm probably just going to do one more ribbon bundle here. Just because my other pipe cleaners I think are buried under my signs, so I'm just going to do 2 ribbon bundles, or 4 ribbon bundles on the top. I have the 10 on the outside. Again, if you want to add your bundles before you add your sign, you're going to end up having 8 on the inside. It's just a matter of preference. I do like the way the ribbon looks when it's sticking out from behind the sign too. That's a cute look. So there's another bundle, and I think I have one more pipe cleaner over here I have access to. I can see it here. Push that down a little bit too far. Guess I don't want my ribbon getting buried here. Just kind of curl your ribbons under. That's what I do. And like I said, mesh has this really neat thing that it does, is it grabs a hold of whatever you lay on it. So a lot of times if you feel like your ribbon's sticking up too much, just sort of tuck it down and the mesh will just sort of grab a hold of it in most cases. And one more bow tie. I think that's going to be it for me for this wreath. I think we're pretty much done. It's very simple. This red added a nice pop of color. Very rustic and country looking. Although I may not hang this in my house, it's going to make me sad thinking about my doggy. So if I don't sell it, whoops, see, this is what I mean. You got to make sure that your bundle or your bow tie is folded over, or it's going to pop out. You have to make sure the ends are folded over each other. And that's exactly what that one just did. So hopefully I can go ahead and get it back in since I already cut my pipe cleaner down. Let's see if I can do this, ladies. With this little tiny bit of pipe cleaner I have here, without cutting my fingers, I did it. There we go. So I was trying to adjust the bow tie and it ended up pulling it right out. So Okay. I thought maybe there was another pipe cleaner here that I could have added ribbon to, but it's buried somewhere in here. Trying to see if I could find it. There it is right there actually, but I don't really want to put another ribbon bundle in because it's going to be buried under my sign. So I think that's it for my ribbon, ladies. There was another pipe cleaner over here, but it's stuck under the sign, so I think they came out darn cute, if I say so myself. I don't really see any spots that need anything else. This is a type of wreath you don't really want to add a lot of embellishments to because it's supposed to be kind of rustic looking with the natural jute mesh. So that is it. That is my it's Beware of Dog Kisses. I almost said Must Love Dogs like that movie. I'm very happy with how that came out. I think it came out real cute. I'm going to take a picture and I'm going to post it and get you guys the video by the end of the day after I run my errands. I know you've been very patient, but I can't wait to see how yours turns out. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks, ladies. Sorry for the back of my head. Bye. I can stop it. Yes, please. Thanks, ladies.